Let's talk about this New Orleans Pelicans team, review their season. Let's look at the older players. Dejounte Murray, C.J. McCollum. Herb Jones fits in here as well. Michael Bolton, you're not one of the older ones.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and welcome to the Slaughter in the Water. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free, and we are available on all platforms. So a thumb and a bang and a comment and all that sort of stuff. This is the first of our two-part New Orleans Pelicans season review show. So we're going to get straight into talking about this Pelicans team with just a million question marks on World Asthma Day. Oh, Asthma. I used to have a lot of problems with asthma. Seems to have dissipated somewhat, which I am thankful for. But yeah, shout out to everyone who has to deal with the consistent problems of, hey, am I going to be able to breathe properly today or in this weather or in this environment? Not a great place to be. All right, we are talking about the Pelicans. And like I said, there's just a lot that needs to be, decided with this team. There's a lot that we need to try and figure out with where they go from here. And we still, at the time we're recording this, I don't know who their new GM is going to be. They fired David Griffin, but as is usual, that's not true. I don't know why I said that. I know who their new GM is going to be. They hired bloody Joe Dumars, which, why? I think that's the question. And I guess when decisions like that get made, and bringing someone like Joe Dumars in, who, was solid 25 years ago and made some incredibly bad decisions for many, many years, and then was working in the league office, and then the Pelicans seemed like they conducted absolutely no search whatsoever. And just like, Joe is like around, so he have a job, my guy, but he also can't change the coach. So I'm very worried about what moves we might actually get here from the Pelicans. They only have currently one draft pick in the upcoming draft. Now, it could be anywhere from pick number 1 to pick number 8. They've got the 4th highest odds in the lottery, but of course that doesn't mean that they're going to be picking at 4th. Their most likely outcome is actually number 6. They've got a 26% chance at picking at number 6, which is really interesting that the Hornets in number 3 and the Pelicans in number 4 both have a 26% chance of picking at number 6. The difference there, of course, is that the Hornets have got a high chance of picking at 5, double the chance versus the Pelicans, and the Pelicans can drop all the way down to 8, whereas the Hornets can't. But both of their most likely outcomes is at 6. Cool. That's the only pick that they've got. They had a 21-61 record this last season, and of course, from what I understand, without having done a huge amount of in-depth research into this draft, you do probably want that top 5 pick. There's going to be good players along the way, but the real studly type guys are really in that top 5. So falling down to 8, being at 6 is not going to be ideal. And you don't have anything else to work with here. So let's talk about what their upcoming free agency scenario is. There are 2 players who are unrestricted guys, Bruce Brown and Jeremiah Robinson-Earl. Brown was acquired as part of the Brandon Ingram trade. Robinson-Earl came across in the preseason. And both guys played some minutes, but they are obviously not a key to what this team does. And I don't think there'd be any sort of priority on Robinson-Earl necessarily. Brown, who knows? Maybe they want to bring him back, maybe not. I don't think it really matters that much, honestly. He had some moments down the end, and they're going to be down Dejounte Murray all season. But I don't think Brown matters that much. They've got 2 team options to make decisions on, and I think they're going to be relatively easy decisions, obviously. You've got Brandon Boston Jr. and Alfred Payton. I would be picking up Boston's option. Payton signed $1 million 10-day contracts, and then at the end of the season, they signed him to a 2-year deal with a team option for year 2. I really don't think they're bringing Alfred Payton back, but again, maybe they do, because Dejounte Murray isn't there. And maybe they want him involved with that. I don't know why, but they could do that. Now, there is still, if I was the new GM, and I'm not, that of course is GM legend Joe Dumas, there are plenty of things I'd be trying to do. And number one of those would be like, can I get anything for C.J. McCollum? Can I move on in that direction? And then that just changes a lot of how that backcourt looks. And obviously, it's going to be tough without Dejounte. Not that he was good this season, but it is going to be harder. But so maybe you hold on to CJ for that purpose only. But it's not a good spot to be in. What we can look at now are a couple of non-guarantees, and you're going to see one of these names and go, "What do you talk about? Why is his contract non-guaranteed?" Well, that's Zion Williamson. His contract is fully non-guaranteed. They can cut him with no salary cap implication at all. The implication they have is that if you cut Zion Williamson, you don't have Zion Williamson, and you lose the salary slot, and you don't get anything back. So it's not going to happen. Now, they could do it, theoretically, again, and they don't eat any of the money, and Zion gets paid nothing. But they won't. The other one is Antonio Reeves, their second-round pick from the last draft, who honestly just did absolutely nothing until the final 2 weeks of the season, which makes you go, don't know how much I trust of any of that. We'll talk more about Zion in the show tomorrow, but yeah, he's not getting cut, and Antonio Reeves is not getting cut either. That's just not something they're going to do. And then there's two restricted free agents. Again, these are not important options here. Jamal Kane and Keon Brooks Jr., who are two-way guys. Really nothing super exciting with any of those players there. What now we can take a look at is the aforementioned Dejounte Murray, because Murray came across in what ended up being a pretty foolish trade, trading away Larry Nance, but more importantly, Dyson Daniels and a draft pick in order to bring Dejounte in. And I think Dejounte has been for a long time one of the most overrated players in the NBA. And I just don't think that people think that that's two teams now who've thought he was the answer, and both teams have been very, very obviously incorrect. And yeah, I know that Dejounte tore his Achilles, and that's part of the downside, which is very clear. Like, that makes it a huge L, clearly. But he was also bad. Like, before he tore his Achilles, he was not good at all. And that's going to be the injury, you can't do anything about it, right? But also, if they didn't trade for Dejounte, they wouldn't have had Dejounte tearing his Achilles. Just a bad move that is going to set them back. But let's talk about Murray and his production this season. He's 29 now, or he's going to be 29. Again, these ages are rounded up. We're talking about the over 25s in this show. Dejounte is going to miss. I don't think he'll miss all of next season. Achilles injuries, you can be a 10 to 11 month return. Usually not. Now, you're not going to be at your best. But even if it's 12 months, that means he does come back halfway through the season. So he won't miss the entirety of the season. I'm pretty sure of that. But he's also not going to be anywhere near his best. He's going to be limited in terms of his back-to-backs. He's also, he's not as old as Damian Lillard, who just tore his Achilles also. He's 29, but it's going to be the 26-27 season that Dejounte is going to be back to himself, or as close to himself as he gets, and by then he's 31, and there's already been declines built in. For fantasy this season, despite how bad his season was, he was actually not terrible. He was the 26th ranked player overall. He played 33 minutes a night with 27 usage. He averaged 40 fantasy points with just 18, 6.5, and 7.5. It could have been a lot better, because he shot under 30% from three and under 40% from the field. He did have 2 steals a game, which did really float a lot of his numbers. But while I think that Dejounte Murray is entirely overrated, I'm also not going to sit here and tell you that I believe that he's a sub 30% shooter and a sub 40% shooter. All that stuff is going to rise. Now, if it's going to be very specific scenarios in dynasty formats, because you're not going to get, you might get 30 games from him next season, and even then you get them at low minutes and he's not going to be good. But if you're in a situation where you can afford that, the value of him is going to be incredibly low. Again, I don't think that he's anywhere near a first or a second round player. I don't think he'll ever be a third round player, honestly, again. But you might be able to get that at a pretty cheap price, understanding that he is close to 30 now. The advanced stuff is a little rough. Look at that DPM delta. He declined a lot. His deflection numbers were high. His rim contest numbers were high. His passing creation was high. So outside of the bad shooting, and there was some bad on-court stuff as well, but outside of the bad shooting, most of his other stuff was all right. it was encouraging enough, at least from a fantasy perspective, that and I think that when he does come back, this team will look a little bit different. It won't be as crowded. CJ won't be there. Zion may not be there. So it's just a little sneaky. I don't know how sneaky it is because, again, you got to take a hit here. But for as bad as he was, and as bad as I think he is compared to what consensus used to be, I might be pushing on the side of he might not be that bad. I don't know. That might be tough to sort of decipher all that, but I think it makes a little bit of sense. Today's episode, it is brought to you by Monarch Money. We all open up our banking apps, we all check our accounts, and sometimes, the moths fly out at us. We go, where's the money gone? What happened? Dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it can be easy to lose track of where your spending has gone. And that is where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. But it's not just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and all of your spending in one place. So don't just manage your money, start building wealth. When you use Monarch, you can check your spending and go, I'm spending a lot on these subscription services. Do I actually need to be doing all of that? What about all these food delivery? Is that where the money's going? You can put all your apps into one spot, so it's easy to just access all that information with one click. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is Monarch Money. The code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Okay, let's get into more of these Pelicans now that we've talked about Dejounte Murray, because the next guy is a guy that you're going to call me a hater on that, and I know that. I have been down on C.J. McCollum for years. And I will be honest with you, is every time I am down on C.J., he usually performs better than I anticipated due to other reasons. Not always. Some of it is me just projecting something incorrectly, but often it's just that, C.J. did this because two other usage players all went down. Or CJ did this because he had a 48% three-point shooting run. Or CJ did this because all of a sudden he's blocking 1.5 shots a game out of nowhere. And while that stuff is frustrating from an analyst projecting standpoint, which is where I'm at, when there's always something that seems to randomly happen, like at some point, like there's a reality in like an overproduction without being able to pinpoint what the overproduction is. But I think we're here now. I think that reality is going to hit, and I think last season was a pretty good example of that. CJ is 34. He had a 27 usage. He played 56 games. He was only the 104th ranked player. He was worse after the break. He averaged under 34 fantasy points. He did average 21 points a game, but 4 rebounds and 4 assists. But when you look at his numbers, like 37 from 3, like it's fine. 72 from the line. Can't trust this man's free throw percentage ever. And by can't trust it, that doesn't mean bad. It means you can't trust it. It means he might shoot 90, he might shoot 62, he might shoot 81, he might shoot 75. You can't trust it. So you might as well just go with the flow and say, whatever, man. Like, do whatever you need to do. Shoot however you want to shoot. I don't care. I've given up. But it's the other stuff. Like, the steal on the block numbers, again, this gives credence to that was absolutely bullshit fluke that we're getting some of those numbers, because that's not what he does. He's a low assist player. He doesn't rebound. And the shooting is not that high level. The deltas on the drip and the DPM dropped, or they're low. His deflection and contest numbers are incredibly low, again, making some of those other numbers seem outrageous. His load and his passing volume actually dipped despite Dejounte being out all season, or most of the season, and Ingram being out nearly all season. They might want to rely upon him to be their starting point guard because of the injuries. It's going to go terribly. This man is not a starting caliber player anymore, unfortunately for him. He just isn't, I don't think. He's not that guy anymore. But they might have no choice to rely upon it. And you will get sucked in to drafting him. But it's got to be in a realistic area. Like, you shouldn't touch him anywhere near the top 50. Honestly, even the top 75. Because even if they do go into the season with him as the starter, which they could very easily do that, I'm still going to have a pretty large level of skepticism about him maintaining solid production all season. We worried about this team heading into the year with how does everyone get all the minutes. But I think the injury to Dejounte, the absence of Brandon Ingram, it makes it a little cleaner now, where it's probably going to be CJ, Herb, Trey, Zion, Messi, I'm guessing. Of course, what if they get pick 1? What if they get Harper or Bailey? What if that's a guard that's replacing CJ? That can muck things up a little bit. But it is a little cleaner now. So I think you might have a chance, at least for the first half of next season, to get some better numbers out of CJ. It's going to be fool's gold. I'm pretty certain of that. Speaking of Herbalife Jones. Jones, again, were in that spot like Trey Murphy was injured to begin the season. So Jones got unfettered access. Then Ingram went down. And other players went down. And he was able to produce at an okay level. But he played just 20 games. I'm always going to have skepticism about Herb Jones, who's already 27, by the way. Because his value relies upon really high steal numbers. His shooting is incredibly variable. 31% only from 3 this season, 44 overall. But he did hit 83 from the line. He was averaging 25 fantasy points in his 20 games. There will be people that if he played 72 games would believe that he is a second, third round type of player. I will never believe that, and he should never, ever, to me, even in category leagues, go inside the top 100. It's a one category guy. But he's awesome at it. He's a very good defender. 96th percentile deflections. The steal numbers are real. Like 2 steals a game is easily achievable by him. But I'm never going to trust his shooting. I'm never going to trust his shooting volume. I'm never going to trust an ability to ramp up his offensive volume or passing or any of those things. So there is an opportunity for him to come into this season with a CJ, Trey, Herb, Zion 4 next to a center, probably Messi, and he'll play 32, 33 minutes a night and he'll get good steals. But what happens? Can he take 14 usage to 18? I don't think so. The advanced stuff actually really didn't like what happened, and his deltas were all really low. So he was like a guy that those sort of things. And again, he is in that zone now at close to 27 where you are hitting peak time. NBA players' peak is around 28 to 29. So he's still got a little bit of room to get better, but we're starting to hit that peak. So again, it could be one of those scenarios here with Herb where the beginning of next season looks a little bit better, but overall, I don't, as good as Herb is defensively, I don't trust Herb Jones as a fantasy contributor. There's just not enough in the other areas outside of steals to get me any sort of level of excited whatsoever here. They're the 3 major older guys over 25s on this team. The next one is Jose Alvarado, who hasn't been around long, but he's 27. Alvarado had a real opportunity this season when we saw that Dejounte was out, and then we thought he would start, and then he sort of did, and then he didn't. And then we had CJ going down. We thought, okay, well, Alvarado will do this. But overall, we've got to have a lot of concerns about what he is as a player, because not only did he not perform that well, 36% from 3 is pretty good. 1.3 steals is fine. 39 from the field is bad. His deflection rate is good. But he passed a lot. His load was high. His on-ball percentage was high. Drip liked him. Darko didn't. I actually thought he took steps back this season. But my problem with that is that when point guard 1 went down and then point guard 2 went down, they still didn't prioritize him. It wasn't like, all right, Jose, let's see what we can do. It was like, let's try somebody different. It's almost very similar to the way John Collins worked in Utah. His Taylor Hendricks went down. I was like, let's try Cody Williams. Let's try Kyle Filipowski. Let's try Johnny Juzang. And eventually we got Collins into the role. They were like, yeah, you're here, but like, I don't think so. And that's sort of how it felt with Alvarado. I don't think anyone's expecting a big breakout from Jose. But what he is, he is what he is. He'll hit some threes. He'll be inefficient. He'll get some steals. He has some passing moments, but, and these are all with these bad teams especially, when you need 1, 2, 3, 4 guys to go out to be able to be in a position to do something, and even that something is not that good, well, our hope for you at age 27 is not that high. Even post-deadline with guys out, wasn't a top 150 player, which is just, it should be an absolutely shining beacon of a red flag. Let's get through the rest of these older guys. Again, I say that with all due respect. So let's get into this next group of guys to take a look at here on the Pelicans. The second show of this little series will include players like Trey Murphy. It will include Zion Williamson, Yves Missi, Kale Makovich. Let's talk about Kelly Olynyk, who I really couldn't understand this with Olynyk and the Pelicans, who came across after the Ingram trade and they didn't play him after the deadline, leading up until the All-Star break. There was like personal reasons, and I thought, okay, he's just not going to play. Whatever. And then not only did he play, but they relied upon him as a starter. I was like, what? Why? What are you doing? But they did it, and he was sort of, not quite, but he was close enough to being sort of the old Kelly Olynyk. In Toronto, he was not that. He had like dropped off a lot. But he did, I thought, start to turn things back around. Now, he is 34, Kelly Olynyk. He played 44 games. He was 136 post-deadline, and he ended up getting some games off down there as well. But he ended up with 9 and 5 with 3 assists. He just does these things. He shot 42 from 3. He was good from the field. He got his assists. He got his boards. He got his points. He is a solid enough organizer offensively, but it, again, just required a lot of weird things to be happening. It required Willie Green going with Zion at the 3 because Trey Murphy was out, and Herb was out, and CJ was out, and Dejounte was out. And he started actually games before Trey went out as well. But they're not relying upon Kelly Olynyk. He's 34. And I even think that if he gets another opportunity to be a starter for a period of time, I'm not even sure that he can necessarily do this again. Because he was really good. Like, his passing volume's high. His time on ball is high. His deflections are high. And he's not always going to be that guy. But it was encouraging. He's going to be around, and we almost certainly don't want to be drafting him for next season, even if he does remain on this team. But that's the thing with this team is, why would we hold him? Why would you want to hold on to C.J. McCollum? Where are you going with this squad? But as a player to dump onto a contender at some point, or if this team actually comes together and is good, which they won't because Dejounte's out, Olynyk as a solid backup is fine, and that's important for deep leagues. Maybe he's got one more year in him of being at this level, just with a 10% drop off. But yeah, I think it's surprising. The other player coming across in that trade, which again would seem to be just to be salary matching purposes, the Shark, Bruce Brown, who I thought was really quite poor in Toronto, and his first few games in New Orleans were poor as well. And then, again, rather inexplicably, which is pretty a pretty, I don't know what the right term is, damning indictment, I guess, on some of the younger players. They would start him and play him big minutes after the deadline. Now, was he good in those minutes? Not necessarily. Even a lot of his defensive prowess isn't quite there anymore. He used to be a point guard who could defend multiple positions, who had some fluky shooting but could defend really well, and that's not quite at that same level. Darko really thinks he dropped off, and I'm sort of in that zone, although he did look a little bit better towards the end, but it required just a lot of things to happen. And I don't think there's any need for him to be back on this team. 41 games, 22 minutes, 17 usage, shot 33 from 3, 82 from the line. Like, they're all right numbers. But overall, the time of Bruce Brown being a fantasy contributor for the majority of us is, or it should be, pretty much done. Speaking of pretty much done, amazingly, we have to talk about Alfred Payton. I thought bro was done. Like, we did a whole season, like preseason team previews. We didn't talk about this man because he didn't play for anybody. And then he ended up with a few 10 days in Charlotte. Hardship contracts in Charlotte. And then he ended up on some 10 days in New Orleans. And then he ended up signing a contract with a team option for next season. And one thing we know about Alfred Payton is that you're just going to get assists. But bro's game is so broken at this stage that you get nothing else now. He averaged 3 points. In 21 minutes, 3 points. He shot 17 from 3, 33 from the field, 57 from the line. They are like brutally horrific numbers. Yet he still averaged 7 assists and a steal. Which, when you're playing 30 minutes a night as a starter, which he did for a period of time, getting double-digit assists, unbelievably valuable. But, like, what need is there to... Like, I know there's no Dejounte Murray. And I know that having some point guard help is useful, but I don't think this is useful. His passing creation volume 100%. He does nothing else anymore. Deflections, like he could do a little bit of that. But that sort of shooting, that sort of scoring, that sort of usage is putrid. And I'm hoping that we don't really have to talk much about Alfred Payton moving forward. Jamal Kane was a player who, in Miami, there were a few flashes. I believe he had like a 35-point game in the preseason a few years ago. And we go, oh yeah, the Heat have done it again. Another one of these two-way guys. It's going to pop off. Shout out to Kendrick Nunn. And it just never happened. He ended up in New Orleans and really didn't play very much early on in the season at all. He ended up with 37 games played, 14 minutes. He's a two-way contract guy. He averaged 11 fantasy points, averaging 5 points, 2 rebounds, 0.6 steals. Shot 33 from 3. He contested the ball well. He played out of position a lot at the 4. In Miami, he was more of a 2-3. He played like a 3-4 role in New Orleans. He's not particularly tall. He's a really low-volume guy who just was there rebounding and playing defensively. And honestly, like, he's partly just, we're talking about him here just for inclusion's sake. He's 26. I don't really think that there's many steps forward here for Jamal Kane. And this was the opportunity for him on this team with the guys out to step up and to do something, and he wasn't able to do it. And when they were giving minutes to Keon Brooks Jr. and Antonio Reeves and Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, Carlo Makovich, and all those guys were having moments of doing things, and he really couldn't. And he couldn't even demand like a large role most of the time. That's a little on the damning side as well. But that happens, doesn't it? And that is the older players for the New Orleans Pelicans, the 25 and over grouping. We're going to come back and for the next show tomorrow, talk about the younger guys, the under 25s, including Zion, including Trey, including disappointments like Jordan Hawkins. Talk about all that coming up. In the meantime, you know how to find it. You subscribe. Audio and video. Both of those sides. Leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.